The morning I decided to trade lives with my sister, I had no idea I was about to detonate a bomb that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my family. By the end of that week, 3 marriages would be hanging by a thread. A 20-year-old secret would surface, and I would discover that the sister I'd envied my entire life was living a lie so elaborate it made my own problems seem laughably simple. It started with a stupid argument over Sunday dinner, the kind that siblings have been having since the dawn of time. Except this one spiraled into something much bigger. My name is Penelope Hartwell, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a senior analyst at Morrison & Associates, a mid-sized consulting firm downtown, and I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment that I've been trying to afford for the past 3 years. My sister Genevieve is 2 years younger, married to a successful orthopedic surgeon named David, and lives in a sprawling colonial house in the suburbs with their twin 8-year-old daughters, Lucy and Sophie. The argument that changed everything happened on a rainy October Sunday. We were all gathered at our parents' house for our weekly family dinner, a tradition that had somehow survived into our 30s despite everyone's increasingly complicated schedules. Mom had made her famous pot roast. Dad was complaining about the football game, and everything seemed perfectly normal until Genevieve made an offhand comment about how easy my life must be. "I mean, think about it, Penny," she said, cutting into her meat with surgical precision. "You come home from work, and that's it. No one needs anything from you. No homework to supervise. No soccer practice to drive to. No husband wanting dinner on the table. You can just exist." The words hit me like a slap. I set down my fork and stared at her. "Easy? You think my life is easy?" "Compared to mine, absolutely." She didn't even look up from her plate. "I haven't had a full night's sleep in 8 years. I can't remember the last time I took a shower without someone banging on the bathroom door. My entire existence revolves around other people's needs. And my existence doesn't matter because I don't have kids?" "That's not what I said." "It's exactly what you said." I could feel the familiar heat rising in my chest, the same feeling I'd had countless times growing up when Genevieve seemed to effortlessly excel at everything while I struggled just to keep up. "You have no idea what my life is like. I know you don't have to pack lunches at midnight because you forgot until the kids reminded you. I know you don't have to negotiate with the 8-year-old about why vegetables are necessary. I know you don't have to work 60-hour weeks just to afford rent," I interrupted. "I know you don't have to eat cereal for dinner because you're too tired to cook for one person. I know you don't have to pretend you're not lonely when everyone around you is talking about their families." The dining room fell silent. Mom and Dad exchanged one of those looks that parents perfect over decades of marriage, the kind that communicates an entire conversation without words. Genevieve finally looked up at me, and for a moment, I saw something in her eyes that I couldn't quite identify. "You want to know what my life is really like?" she said quietly. "Fine. Let's switch." "What?" "Let's switch lives for a week. You can have my easy suburban paradise, and I'll take your difficult single life. We'll see who's really got it harder." I should have laughed it off. I should have changed the subject, or made a joke, or done literally anything other than what I did next. "You're on," I said. And that's how I found myself standing in Genevieve's kitchen the following Monday morning, staring at 2 identical 8-year-olds who were looking at me like I'd grown a second head. "Where's Mom?" Lucy asked. Or maybe it was Sophie. I still couldn't tell them apart, which was probably not a good sign considering I was supposed to be taking care of them for the next 5 days. "She's at Aunt Penny's apartment," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Remember? We talked about this yesterday." "But why are you making our breakfast?" This from the other twin, who was eyeing the bowl of cereal I'd poured with obvious skepticism. "Because I'm taking care of you this week. Mom makes us scrambled eggs on Mondays," the first twin said. "With cheese, and she cuts up strawberries." I opened the refrigerator and found eggs, cheese, and strawberries. How hard could it be? 20 minutes later, I was scraping burned eggs off the bottom of a pan while smoke filled the kitchen and the twins sat at the table, eating cereal anyway. "Are you sure you're related to Mom?" one of them asked. Before I could answer, David appeared in the doorway, already dressed in his scrubs. He was a tall man with graying temples and the kind of confident bearing that came from years of being respected and well compensated. He surveyed the smoky kitchen with raised eyebrows. "Everything okay in here?" "Fine," I said quickly, waving smoke away from the smoke detector. "Just a little breakfast mishap." He nodded and kissed each of the twins on the forehead. "Be good for Aunt Penny," he said. "I'll be home late tonight. Surgery ran long yesterday, and I'm behind on everything." After he left, I got the twins dressed and ready for school, which turned out to be a production involving lost homework, mismatched socks, and a heated argument about whether Lucy's hair looked better in braids or a ponytail. By the time I dropped them off at Riverside Elementary, I was already exhausted, and it wasn't even 9 o'clock. I spent the rest of the morning trying to figure out Genevieve's schedule, which was written in a color-coded planner that looked like it had been designed by someone with a degree in organizational psychology. Blue for the twins' activities, red for household tasks, green for David's schedule, and purple for what she optimistically called personal time. Though I noticed there were very few purple entries, I was supposed to clean the house, do 3 loads of laundry, grocery shop, and prepare something called overnight oats for the twins' breakfast the next day. I was also supposed to take Lucy to a dentist appointment and Sophie to a piano lesson, though I still wasn't entirely sure which twin was which. Meanwhile, my phone kept buzzing with texts from Genevieve. She'd started her day at my apartment and was apparently having her own revelations. "How do you live in a place this small?" was her first message, sent at 7:30 a.m. "Your coffee maker doesn't work," came at 8:15. "Never mind, found the instant coffee. This is not coffee at 8:20. "Why don't you have any food?" at 8:45. "I mean, any food. There's ketchup and half a bagel in here," at 8:46. I didn't have time to respond because I was standing in the cereal aisle of the grocery store, staring at 17 different varieties of breakfast options and trying to remember if the twins had mentioned any dietary restrictions. I grabbed what looked like the most nutritious option and moved on to the produce section, where I spent 20 minutes trying to pick out strawberries that looked like the ones I'd seen in Genevieve's refrigerator. By the time I got home, put away the groceries, and started the first load of laundry, it was time to pick up the twins from school. They climbed into the back seat of Genevieve's minivan with the casual efficiency of people who had been doing this routine for years. "How was school?" I asked, trying to channel the kind of maternal interest I'd observed in other people. "Fine," they said in unison, which I was learning was their default response to most questions. "Did you learn anything interesting?" "Not really." "Do you have homework?" "Maybe." This was going to be a long week. The dentist appointment was mercifully straightforward, mostly because the hygienist clearly knew Lucy well and took charge of the situation. The piano lesson was less successful. I sat in the waiting room while Sophie played scales, and I could hear the teacher gently correcting her technique through the thin walls. When she emerged, she looked upset. "I forgot to practice," she whispered to me. "Mom always reminds me to practice." "It's okay," I said, though I wasn't sure if it was. "You can practice when we get home." "I don't want to practice. I want Mom." I felt something twist in my chest. "I know, sweetheart. But Mom will be back soon, and in the meantime, I'm here to take care of you." "But you don't know how to take care of us," she said matter-of-factly. "You burned our breakfast, and you gave us the wrong cereal, and you can't tell me and Lucy apart." She was right, of course. I had no idea what I was doing. That evening, after a dinner of takeout pizza, because my attempt at following one of Genevieve's meal planning recipes had resulted in something that looked like it belonged in a hazmat container, I sat at the kitchen table trying to help the twins with their homework while they argued about whose turn it was to feed their goldfish. My phone buzzed with another text from Genevieve. "Had drinks with your coworkers. They're nice. Also, what's the deal with Marcus from accounting? He seems very interested in your week off." I frowned. Marcus was a colleague who'd been flirting with me for months, but I'd been too busy and too tired to pay much attention. The idea of Genevieve having drinks with my coworkers felt strange, like she was trying on my life like a costume. "How are the girls?" I texted back. "Challenging. How's David?" I looked over at David, who was sitting in his recliner reading medical journals while the twins argued about math homework. He seemed completely absorbed in his work, oblivious to the chaos around him. "Fine," I typed. "Busy." "He's always busy," came her immediate response. "Did he make it home for dinner?" "No, surgery ran late." There was a long pause before her next message. "That's what he said?" Something in her tone made me look up from my phone. "What do you mean?" "Nothing, just—" "Never mind." But I couldn't let it go. "Jen, what did you mean by that?" I said never mind. "Penny, focus on the girls." I stared at my phone, trying to decode the subtext in her messages. Was she implying that David was lying about working late? That seemed absurd. David was a surgeon. Surgeons worked long hours. It was a fact of life. But as I watched him reading his journal, I noticed that he seemed more relaxed than someone who'd just finished a long, stressful day of surgery. His shoulders weren't tense, his jaw wasn't tight. He looked comfortable. "David," I said, "how was your day?" He looked up from his journal. "Fine, busy, as usual." "What kind of surgeries did you have?" He hesitated for just a moment. "Knee replacement, rotator cuff repair, nothing too exciting." "That's what kept you late?" "Complications with the rotator cuff. These things happen." I nodded and went back to helping Sophie with her fractions, but something nagged at me. I'd been around David for years, and I'd never seen him hesitate when talking about his work. He was usually eager to share the details of his cases, especially the challenging ones. Later that night, after I'd gotten the twins bathed and into bed, a process that took twice as long as I'd expected and involved a lengthy negotiation about bedtime stories, I found myself alone in Genevieve's kitchen, staring at the family photos on the refrigerator. There were dozens of them, the twins at various ages, family vacations, holiday celebrations, school events. In every single photo, Genevieve was smiling, but as I looked closer, I noticed that her smile looked strained in the more recent pictures. Her eyes didn't seem to reach her smile, and there was a tightness around her mouth that I'd never noticed before. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "Can't sleep. Your neighbors are loud." "Sorry," I typed back. "Thin walls." "How do you stand it?" "You get used to it. How are you feeling about the switch so far?" "Honestly, I'm not sure I remember how to be alone. I keep expecting someone to need something from me." I thought about that as I loaded the dishwasher and wiped down the counters. I'd always envied Genevieve's full house, the constant activity, the sense of purpose that came from being needed. But maybe being needed all the time was its own kind of prison. The next morning went slightly better. I managed to make scrambled eggs without burning them, and I correctly identified which twin was which. Lucy had a small scar on her chin from a playground accident the previous year. But as I was driving them to school, Lucy asked a question that stopped me cold. "Aunt Penny, why doesn't Daddy live with us anymore?" I nearly swerved into the next lane. "What do you mean? Daddy lives with you." "No, he doesn't," Sophie said from the back seat. "He sleeps in the guest room." "He has for weeks," Lucy added. "Mom said it's because he snores, but Mom snores too and she never slept somewhere else." I felt my heart rate spike. "Are you sure about this?" "We're not stupid," Sophie said. "We know when grown-ups are fighting." "Are Mom and Dad fighting?" "They don't yell," Lucy said. "But they don't talk either, not like they used to." I dropped them off at school and sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes, trying to process what they'd told me. David and Genevieve were sleeping in separate rooms? Since when? And why hadn't she mentioned this during our week of complaining about each other's lives? I drove home and went straight to the master bedroom. The bed was made, but when I looked closer, I could see that only one side showed signs of being slept in. The other side was perfectly smooth, the pillows still fluffed and arranged. I walked down the hall to the guest room and found clear evidence that someone had been sleeping there. Rumpled sheets, a glass of water on the nightstand, and a pair of David's reading glasses on the dresser. My phone was buzzing with texts from Genevieve, but I ignored them. I needed to think. If David and Genevieve were having marital problems, that would explain a lot. It would explain why she seemed so stressed all the time, why she'd been so quick to criticize my life, why she'd jumped at the chance to escape her own reality for a week. But it also raised questions. If their marriage was in trouble, why hadn't she told me? We were sisters. We were supposed to share these things. I spent the rest of the day distracted, going through the motions of Genevieve's routine while my mind raced. I picked up the twins, took them to their after-school activities, helped with homework, and made dinner. But I was operating on autopilot. That evening, David came home at a reasonable hour for the first time since I'd been there. He seemed surprised to see me in the kitchen. "You didn't have to wait up," he said. "I was just cleaning up from dinner." He nodded and opened the refrigerator, pulling out a beer. "How are the girls adjusting to the switch?" "They're doing well. They missed their mom. But they're being good sports about it." "Good. That's good." He took a sip of his beer and leaned against the counter. "This is a little weird, isn't it, having you here instead of Jen?" "A little," I agreed. "But it's been educational." "How so?" I took a deep breath. "David, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Are you and Genevieve okay?" He froze with the beer halfway to his lips. "What do you mean?" "I mean, are you two okay, as a couple?" He set down the beer and looked at me for a long moment. "Did she say something to you?" "The girls mentioned that you've been sleeping in the guest room." His face went pale. "They told you that?" "They're not stupid, David. They know when something's wrong." He ran a hand through his hair and sank into one of the kitchen chairs. "It's complicated, Penny. Most things are. But maybe talking about it would help." He was quiet for so long that I thought he might not answer. Finally, he said, "We've been having problems for a while now, since before the girls started school, really." "What kind of problems?" "The usual kind. We don't talk anymore. We're like roommates who happen to share children." He looked up at me. "Do you know when the last time Jen and I had a real conversation was? Not about the girls or the house or my schedule, but a real conversation about something that mattered?" I shook my head. "I can't remember either. That's the problem." "Have you tried counseling?" "I've suggested it. She says we don't have time." He laughed bitterly. "We don't have time to fix our marriage, but we have time to pretend everything's fine." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you asked. And because I'm tired of pretending." He looked at me directly. "Your sister is a good person. Penny. She's a good mother. But she's not a good wife anymore. And I'm not a good husband. We're just going through the motions." I felt like I was drowning. This was not the conversation I'd expected to have when I agreed to switch lives with my sister. "Does she know you feel this way?" "I've tried to tell her, but she doesn't want to hear it. She's too busy being perfect at everything else to notice that we're falling apart." That night, I lay in Genevieve's bed staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything I'd learned. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "Marcus asked me out. I said yes. Don't be mad." I stared at the message in disbelief. She was going on a date while we were supposed to be switching lives? "Are you serious right now?" I typed back. "When's the last time you went on a date?" "Penny, I'm doing you a favor. This isn't about me. This is about you going out with someone while your husband is at home with your kids." "My husband who hasn't touched me in 6 months? That husband?" I sat up in bed. 6 months? They hadn't been intimate in 6 months. "Jen, we need to talk. I'm having fun for the first time in years. Don't ruin it for me." "I'm not trying to ruin anything. I'm trying to understand what's happening to your marriage." "What marriage?" The words hit me like a physical blow. What marriage? How had things gotten so bad between them that she could dismiss their entire relationship so casually? My phone rang. It was her. "I'm sorry," she said as soon as I answered. "I didn't mean that." "Didn't you?" "I'm drunk. I shouldn't have said that." But you meant it. She was quiet for a long moment. Maybe I did. Jen, what's going on? Really? You want to know what's really going on? Her voice was thick with emotion. I'm dying. Penny. Not literally. But I'm disappearing. I wake up every day and I take care of everyone else, and at the end of the day, there's nothing left of me. That's not true. When's the last time you asked me what I wanted? Not what the girls needed or what David needed, but what I wanted. I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't. Exactly, she said. Because I don't matter. I'm just the person who makes sure everyone else's life runs smoothly. You matter to me. Do I? Or do you just like having someone whose life looks worse than yours? The accusation stung because there was truth in it. I had spent years feeling sorry for myself and envying Genevieve's seemingly perfect life. But I'd never considered that she might be struggling too. That's not fair, I said. Isn't it? You've been in my house for 3 days. Penny, have you once wondered what I actually want out of life? Or have you just been focused on how hard it is to manage my responsibilities? She was right. I'd been so focused on the logistics of her life that I'd never stopped to consider her emotional reality. What do you want? I asked quietly. I want to remember what it feels like to be a person instead of just a mother and a wife. I want to have conversations about things that matter. I want to feel attractive and interesting and alive. And you think going out with Marcus is going to give you that? I think it's a start. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and a sense of dread. I'd spent most of the night thinking about my conversation with Genevieve, and I still didn't know what to do with the information she'd shared. I got the twins ready for school and was pouring coffee when David appeared in the kitchen. He looked like he hadn't slept well. Morning, he said, grabbing a travel mug from the cabinet. Morning, are you okay? Fine, just tired. He poured coffee into his mug and added cream. I was thinking about what we talked about last night. What about it? I don't want the girls to suffer because Jen and I can't figure out our problems. They won't suffer. You're both good parents. Are we? He looked at me with exhausted eyes. Because I'm not sure anymore. I'm not sure about anything anymore. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and tried to figure out what to do next. I was supposed to be learning what Genevieve's life was like. But instead, I was discovering that everything I thought I knew about her marriage was wrong. My phone buzzed with a text from her. Can you pick up some things from the house? I need clothes for tonight. Where are you going? Dinner with Marcus, I told you. Are you sure this is a good idea? For the first time in months, I'm sure about something. I stared at the message, trying to decide whether to push back or let it go. Finally, I typed, what should I tell David? Tell him I'm having dinner with a friend. It's not technically a lie. But it felt like a lie. It felt like I was being asked to participate in something that could destroy what was left of their marriage. That afternoon, I drove to my apartment to get clothes for Genevieve. It felt strange being back in my own space after 3 days of living someone else's life. The apartment seemed smaller than I remembered, and quieter. I could see what Genevieve meant about the silence being overwhelming. I packed a bag with some of her favorite outfits and was about to leave when I found a note on my kitchen table. It was in Genevieve's handwriting. Penny, it said. I know you think I'm making a mistake, but I need you to understand something. I've been a good wife for 10 years. I've been a good mother for 8 years. I've been a good daughter and sister for my entire life. I've never done anything just for me. Not once. So please, let me have this one night. Let me remember what it feels like to be wanted by someone who doesn't need me to make their lunch or schedule their appointments or remember their mother's birthday. Let me be just Genevieve for a few hours, not someone's wife or mother or sister. I promise I'll deal with the consequences tomorrow. I folded the note and put it in my pocket. Then I drove back to the house, where I found David playing catch with the twins in the backyard. For a moment, they looked like any normal family, and I felt a pang of sadness for what they were all about to lose. That evening, I helped the twins with their homework while David made dinner. It was the first time I'd seen him cook, and he was surprisingly competent. The girls chattered about their day, and for brief moments, I could forget about the tension that was building beneath the surface. But then David's phone rang, and I watched his face change as he answered it. "Hello, Dr. Morrison," he said, walking into the next room. "Yes, I can talk." The twins didn't seem to notice anything unusual, but I felt my stomach drop. Dr. Morrison was David's colleague, and they were discussing a case that was apparently urgent enough to require an evening phone call. When David came back to the kitchen, he looked stressed. "I have to go in," he said. "Emergency surgery. Can you handle bedtime?" "Of course," I said. "Is everything okay?" "Car accident, multiple trauma. I'll be there most of the night." After he left, I got the twins ready for bed and was reading them a story when Lucy asked the question I'd been dreading. "Where's Mom tonight?" "She's having dinner with a friend," I said, using the exact words Genevieve had suggested. "What friend?" "Someone from work." The lie felt heavy in my mouth. Why didn't she tell us? She wanted it to be a surprise. Sophie frowned. "Mom doesn't usually go out without telling us." "Well, this week is different, remember. We're all trying new things." But even as I said it, I knew the twins weren't buying it. They were too smart. And they'd already noticed too many changes in their parents' behavior. After they were asleep, I sat in the living room and tried to focus on a book, but I couldn't concentrate. Every time I heard a car in the driveway, I tensed, expecting either David or Genevieve to walk through the door. At 11 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a text from Genevieve. "Having an amazing time. Thanks for covering for me." I didn't respond. At midnight, David came home. He looked exhausted and defeated. "How did it go?" I asked. "We lost him," he said quietly. 23 years old, drunk driver. "I'm sorry." He sat down heavily in his chair. "Days like this make you think about what really matters, you know?" "I can imagine." "Where's Jen?" "Still out." He looked at his watch. "It's past midnight." "I know." "She's never out this late, not without the girls." I didn't know what to say to that. "Penny," he said. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Okay. Is she seeing someone?" The question hung in the air between us. I could feel the weight of Genevieve's secret pressing down on me, and I realized that no matter what I said, I was going to betray someone. "David, just answer the question. Is she seeing someone?" I looked at him. This man who had just spent hours trying to save someone's life, who was sitting in his living room at midnight wondering if his marriage was over. And I made a choice. "She's having dinner with a colleague," I said. "Someone from my work." "A male colleague?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Is it serious?" "I don't know. I don't think so. I think she's just confused right now." "About what?" "About everything. About her life, about your marriage, about who she is." He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "I love her. Penny. I've loved her since college, but I don't know how to fix this." "Have you told her that?" "I've tried. But she won't listen. She's so angry all the time, and I don't know why." I thought about my conversation with Genevieve, about her feeling like she was disappearing, about how she'd said she wanted to remember what it felt like to be a person instead of just a mother and wife. "I think," I said carefully, "that she feels like she's lost herself, like she's given up everything to take care of everyone else, and there's nothing left of who she used to be." "But that's not true. She's still the same person I married." "Is she? When's the last time you asked her about her dreams or her goals or what she wants out of life?" He opened his mouth to answer and then closed it again. "When's the last time you went on a date? Just the two of you, without talking about the girls or the house or your schedules?" "I don't know, months, maybe longer." "When's the last time you told her she was beautiful?" "I tell her that." "When?" I I don't remember. David, you're both good people. But you've stopped being good to each other. At 1:30 in the morning, I heard a car in the driveway. David was still sitting in the living room, staring at the ceiling. I went to the window and saw Genevieve getting out of an Uber. She's home, I said. David stood up. I should go to bed. Are you going to talk to her? Not tonight. I'm too tired to have that conversation. He went upstairs, and a few minutes later, I heard the guest room door close. Genevieve came in through the front door, and I could tell immediately that she'd been drinking. How was your evening? She asked, kicking off her heels. Fine. How was yours? Perfect. She collapsed onto the couch next to me. Marcus is wonderful. He's funny and smart, and he actually listens when I talk. Jen, I know what you're going to say, but I don't want to hear it. I had one perfect evening, and I'm not going to let you ruin it by reminding me of all the reasons why I can't have nice things. David knows. She went very still. Knows what? That you were out with someone. He asked me directly, and I couldn't lie to him. What did you tell him? That you were having dinner with a colleague. I didn't give him details, but he's not stupid, Jen. He knows. She put her head in her hands. This is such a mess. It doesn't have to be. You can still fix this. Can I? Because I don't know how to go back to being the person I was yesterday. I don't know how to pretend that I'm satisfied with a life that's slowly killing me. Then don't pretend. Talk to David. Tell him how you feel. Work together to figure out how to make things better. What if he doesn't want to work on it? What if he's as tired of this as I am? Then at least you'll know. But you owe it to yourself and to your daughters to try. The next morning, I woke up early and found David already in the kitchen, making coffee. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. Morning, I said. Morning. Did you talk to Genevieve? She was asleep when I got up, or pretending to be. I poured myself coffee and sat down at the kitchen table. David, can I say something? Sure. I think you both want the same thing. You want to feel connected to each other again. You want to feel like partners instead of just co-parents. But you're both so exhausted and hurt that you don't know how to start. Maybe. What if you started small? What if you asked her to have coffee with you this morning, just the two of you, before the girls wake up? What would we talk about? Anything except logistics. Ask her about her dreams. Ask her what she wants to do when the girls are older. Ask her if she's happy. What if she says no? Then you'll know what you're working with. He considered this for a moment. Will you stay with the girls? Of course. An hour later, I watched David and Genevieve walk out the front door together. They looked awkward and nervous, like teenagers on a first date. I hoped they would find their way back to each other. But I wasn't sure they could. The twins were unusually quiet at breakfast. Are Mom and Dad getting divorced? Lucy asked suddenly. The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Why would you ask that? Because Emma's parents got divorced last year, and it started like this. They stopped talking to each other, and they slept in different rooms, and they went out without each other. Your parents love each other very much, I said. They're just going through a difficult time. But they might get divorced, Sophie said. It wasn't a question. I don't know, I said honestly. I hope not. Where would we live? Lucy asked. You would live with both of them. You'd have 2 homes. That sounds terrible, Sophie said. It wouldn't be terrible. It would be different. But you'd still have both your parents. But we wouldn't have our family, Lucy said. I didn't know what to say to that, because she was right. Even if David and Genevieve managed to co-parent effectively, the family that these girls had known for their entire lives would be over. David and Genevieve came back 2 hours later. I could tell from their body language that the conversation hadn't gone well. They were walking several feet apart, and neither of them was looking at the other. How did it go? I asked when I found Genevieve in the kitchen. About as well as expected, she said. He wants to try counseling. That's good, right? I told him it was too late. Is it? She leaned against the counter and closed her eyes. I don't know. Maybe, I feel like we're trying to resurrect something that's already dead. What did he say to that? He said he wasn't ready to give up. He said he still loves me. She opened her eyes and looked at me. Do you know what I said back? I shook my head. Nothing. I said nothing. Because I don't know if I still love him. And I was too scared to find out. That afternoon, I took the twins to the park while David and Genevieve had another conversation. The girls were subdued, picking up on the tension even though we were all trying to act normal. Aunt Penny, Sophie said as she pushed herself on the swing. Do you think our parents are going to stay together? I don't know, sweetie. I hope so. Do you think it's our fault? I stopped pushing Lucy's swing. What? No. Why would you think that? Because maybe if we were better kids, they wouldn't be so tired all the time. Oh, honey. I knelt down in front of her swing. This has nothing to do with you and Lucy, nothing at all. Sometimes adults have problems that don't have anything to do with their children. But if we were easier to take care of, you are perfect exactly as you are. Your parents' problems are grown-up problems that have nothing to do with how wonderful you both are. When we got home, I found David sitting alone in the living room. He looked defeated. Where's Genevieve? I asked. Upstairs. Packing. Packing. She's going back to your apartment tonight. She says she needs space to think. David, I'm sorry. It's not your fault. This was a long time coming. He looked at me. I think I've been in denial about how bad things had gotten. It's not too late to fix this. Maybe not, but it might be too late for Jen. She's already mentally checked out of this marriage. That evening, Genevieve came downstairs with a small suitcase. The twins were doing homework at the kitchen table, and they looked up when she appeared. Are you leaving? Lucy asked. Just for a couple more days. Genevieve said, Aunt Penny and I are finishing our life swap experiment. When are you coming home for real? Sophie asked. Soon, baby. Very soon. She hugged both girls, and I could see her fighting back tears. Then she looked at me. Thank you, she said. For everything. I know this wasn't what you signed up for. Are you okay? I will be. I just need to figure some things out. After she left, David helped the twins with their homework while I made dinner. The house felt different without Genevieve, emptier somehow, even though she'd barely been present for the past few days. That night, after the twins were in bed, David and I sat in the living room not talking. Finally, he broke the silence. I keep thinking about what you said about asking her about her dreams, he said. The truth is, I don't know what her dreams are anymore. I don't know what she wants out of life besides not being married to me. Did you ask her? I tried. But she said she doesn't know either. She said she's been so busy being what everyone else needed that she forgot who she was. Maybe that's where you start. Maybe you help her figure out who she is now. How do you help someone figure out who they are? You give them space to explore. You ask questions. You listen without trying to fix everything. What if she explores and decides she doesn't want to be married to me? Then at least you'll know. But David, what if she explores and discovers that she does want to be married to you, but she needs the marriage to be different? Different how? I don't know. That's what you need to figure out together. The next day was Saturday, and I was supposed to switch back with Genevieve, but when I called her, she asked for more time. I'm not ready to come back yet, she said. I need a few more days. The girls are asking for you. I know, and I miss them. But I also need to figure out what I want before I come back and pretend everything is fine. What do you want me to tell David? Tell him I'm thinking about what he said, about counseling, about trying to save our marriage. Are you? Yes. But I'm also thinking about what it would mean to walk away. That weekend, I took the twins to their soccer games and piano lessons and playdates, trying to maintain some semblance of their normal routine. David helped when he could, but he was scheduled to work Saturday. and I could tell he was struggling with the single-parent duties. "This is hard," he admitted Saturday night after the girls were in bed. "I don't know how she does it all." "She doesn't do it all. She just makes it look like she does." "What do you mean?" "I mean, she's been drowning, David. She's been trying to be perfect at everything, and it's been killing her. But she never said anything, because she didn't think she was allowed to. She thought her job was to make everyone else's life easier, no matter what it cost her." On Sunday, we had our regular family dinner at my parents' house. It was awkward without Genevieve, and my parents kept asking questions that I couldn't answer. "Where is she?" my mother asked for the third time. "She's taking some time to think," I said. "About what?" "About her life, about what she wants." "What she wants?" My father looked confused. "She has everything she wants. A good husband, beautiful children, a nice home. Maybe those aren't the things she wants. What else could she want?" I looked at my parents, these people who had been married for 40 years and seemed genuinely puzzled by the idea that their daughter might want something other than the life they'd always assumed she was happy with. "Maybe she wants to feel like herself again," I said. "Maybe she wants to remember what it's like to be valued for who she is, not just what she does for other people." My mother frowned. "That sounds selfish." "Does it, or does it sound human?" That night, I got a text from Genevieve. "Can you meet me for coffee tomorrow? I need to talk to you." We met at a small cafe near my apartment. She looked tired, but more relaxed than I'd seen her in years. "How are you?" I asked. "Better. Different. I don't know how to explain it." "Try." "I spent the weekend alone in your apartment, and for the first time in years, I didn't have to be anyone except myself. I read a book, I took a long bath, I went for a walk without checking my phone every 5 minutes to see if someone needed something." That sounds nice. It was, and it was also terrifying, because I realized that I don't know who I am when I'm not taking care of other people. "So what are you going to do?" "I'm going to find out. I'm going to go back to David and tell him that I want to try counseling, but I also want to make some changes." "What kind of changes?" "I want to go back to work. Part-time, maybe. But I want to have something that's mine. I want to take that pottery class I've been talking about for 5 years. I want to have dinner with friends without feeling guilty about leaving the girls with a babysitter." Those all sound like reasonable things. They do to me too, but I don't know if they sound reasonable to David. There's only one way to find out. That afternoon, I packed my things and prepared to go back to my own apartment. The twins were sad to see me go, but excited about their mother coming home. "Are you going to visit us?" Lucy asked. "Of course, all the time." "Are you going to make us breakfast again?" "Probably not. I think we've all learned that your mom is much better at that than I am." David walked me to my car. "Thank you," he said, "for everything. For taking care of the girls, for listening to me, for helping me understand what Jen's been going through. I hope you two can work it out." "I hope so too. But if we can't, at least now I understand why." That's a start. I drove back to my apartment, which seemed impossibly small after a week in Genevieve's house, but it also seemed peaceful in a way I hadn't appreciated before. It was quiet, but it was my quiet. It was simple, but it was mine. An hour later, Genevieve texted me, "I'm home. Thank you for covering for me. I owe you everything." "You don't owe me anything. Just be honest with David, and with yourself." "I will, I promise." That evening, she called me. "We talked," she said, "for 3 hours. We said things we should have said months ago." "How did it go?" "Hard, but good. He's willing to try counseling. He's willing to make changes. And I'm willing to try to save our marriage." "That's wonderful." "It's not going to be easy. We have a lot of work to do. But for the first time in months, I have hope." "What happens now?" "Now we figure out how to be married to each other instead of just co-parents. We figure out how to be individuals who chose to be together, instead of just two people who got stuck together." "And Marcus?" "I ended it. I told him I was flattered, but I needed to focus on my family. How did he take it? He understood. He said he hoped I'd figure out what I wanted. Have you? I think so. I want to be married to David, but I want to be married to him as the person I am now, not the person I was 10 years ago. And I want him to be married to me as the person I am, not the person he thinks I should be. 3 months later, I was having dinner with David and Genevieve at their house. The twins were upstairs doing homework, and the three of us were sitting around the kitchen table talking about everything and nothing. How's counseling going? I asked. It's hard work, David said, but it's worth it. We're learning how to talk to each other again, Genevieve added. How to be honest about what we need and want. And how's the job search going? I start Monday, Genevieve said with a smile. Part-time marketing coordinator at a nonprofit downtown. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. That's wonderful. And David's been great about adjusting his schedule so we can share more of the parenting duties. It's been an adjustment, David said, but a good one. I'm getting to know my daughters in a way I never did before. And the pottery class? Thursdays at 7. I'm terrible at it, but I love it. As I drove home that night, I reflected on how much had changed since that Sunday dinner when we decided to swap lives. Genevieve and David were still married, but they were married differently now. They were more honest with each other, more intentional about their relationship, more willing to prioritize their marriage alongside their other responsibilities. The twins seemed happier too. They had parents who were present and engaged, who talked to each other and laughed together and seemed to genuinely enjoy each other's company. And I had learned something important about my own life. I'd spent so much time envying what I thought was Genevieve's perfect existence that I had failed to appreciate the freedom and possibilities in my own life. I was still single, still living in my small apartment, still working long hours. But I was also dating someone new, taking a photography class, and planning a trip to Europe that I'd been putting off for years. Most importantly, I had learned that no one's life is as simple as it looks from the outside. Everyone is struggling with something. Everyone is trying to figure out how to balance their responsibilities with their desires. Everyone is working to become the person they want to be while managing the demands of the life they have. The week we swapped lives had exploded our family dynamics in ways I never could have predicted. But sometimes you have to break something apart before you can put it back together in a way that actually works. 6 months later, I was standing in Genevieve's kitchen again. But this time I was there for a celebration. David and Genevieve had just returned from their first weekend away together in over a year. And they looked like a couple again, not just co-parents. How was the trip? I asked. Perfect, Genevieve said. We talked, we laughed, we remembered why we fell in love in the first place. And we made some decisions about the future, David added. We're going to try for another baby. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. Another baby? We know it sounds crazy, Genevieve said. But we feel like we're finally in a place where we can be good parents and good partners at the same time. That's wonderful, I said, and I meant it. I'm so happy for you both. We wanted to ask you something, David said. Would you be the godmother? I looked at my sister. This woman who had been my rival and my best friend and my biggest source of confusion for most of my life. And I felt tears well up in my eyes. I would be honored, I said. The twins came running into the kitchen, fresh from their soccer game, and the house filled with their chatter and laughter. I watched David and Genevieve move around each other with easy familiarity. No longer the strangers they had become, but not quite the people they used to be either. They were something new, something better. Aunt Penny, Lucy said, are you staying for dinner? If you'll have me. We're having spaghetti, Sophie said. Dad's making it. Dad's cooking now. He's gotten pretty good at it, Genevieve said. Turns out he's full of surprises. As we sat around the dinner table that night, I realized that the family explosion we'd triggered by swapping lives had ultimately brought us all closer together. We were more honest with each other, more supportive, more willing to acknowledge that everyone was struggling with something. What are you thinking about? Genevieve asked me. Just that I'm grateful for that stupid argument we had 6 months ago. Dear, the one that started this whole mess? The one that saved your marriage. David reached over and took Genevieve's hand. I'm grateful for it, too. Even though it was the most terrifying week of my life, Genevieve said. Especially because it was the most terrifying week of your life, I said. Sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to figure out what you really want to keep. Very wise, David said. Speaking of which, how are things with the photographer? His name is James, and things are good. Really good. Are we going to meet him soon? Maybe, if you promise not to embarrass me. We would never, Genevieve said with a grin. Says the woman who told my high school boyfriend that I practiced kissing on my pillow. I was 12. You were evil. I was protecting your reputation. You were a terrible kisser. I was 15. David laughed. It's good to see you two acting like sisters again. We never stopped being sisters, I said. We just forgot how to be friends. Well, I'm glad you remembered, Lucy said. Because it's more fun when you're not mad at each other. Much more fun. Sophie agreed. As I drove home that night, I thought about how much my life had changed in the past 6 months. I was still single, still living in my small apartment, still working long hours, but I was also happier than I'd been in years. I had a deeper relationship with my sister, a better understanding of what I wanted out of life, and a sense of possibility that I'd been missing. The week we swapped lives had been intended as a simple experiment to see who had it harder. Instead, it had become a catalyst for transformation that none of us could have predicted. Sometimes the best way to appreciate your own life is to step outside of it for a while. Sometimes the best way to save a marriage is to risk losing it. Sometimes the best way to find yourself is to pretend to be someone else. And sometimes, the most important conversations happen when you're too tired and too scared to pretend everything is fine. I pulled into my apartment complex and looked up at my small window on the 3rd floor. It wasn't much, but it was mine. And for the first time in years, that felt like more than enough. My phone buzzed with a text from Genevieve. Thank you for the best worst week of my life. I love you. I smiled and typed back, I love you too. And I'm proud of you for fighting for what you wanted. What did I want? To be happy, to be yourself. To be loved for who you are, not just what you do. Mission accomplished.